go. All right.
All right. So, Will, thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. I am originally from town of Aralsk, which is in Kızılorda region, and I joined Nazarbayev University right out of high school. So I went to the foundation program first at Nazarbayev University for international relations and economics. And then once I started my undergraduate program, I initially started it with as an international relations major and economics minor. But then in my second year, I think in the second semester, I decided to change to history major because I noticed that I started taking more and more history electives. I enjoyed them so much. After coming to classes back to my dormitory, I would just do more of the studies. I would want to finish all of my readings. Just yeah, I just enjoyed it so much. I decided that if I really want to be the best in my field, whatever that field is, I will be really good if I do something I enjoy that much. And in my in my third year, I started talking to all of the other history majors and history professors, and also there were like visitors, guest speakers coming in and out, and I was constantly asking everyone, so what did you do? What did you do with your major? And one thing I realized is that a history major means different thing to different people. A lot of the people like more the academic stuff. They like being immersed in the past world and kind of learning from that. Whereas for me, I realized that history major is fundamentally about making decisions. And I think that's how I ended up eventually in a business school right now. But I remember that my third year was year 2014. This was the year that Russia annexed Crimea. It was the year that tenge devaluated and our middle class lost all of their savings. And it was also the year we started having protests because government wanted to increase the pension age for women. And I just realized that at that point, even though I have done so many studies, like by that point, so I was history major, I was political science / international relations minor, and I was also economics minor. But when people would ask me, so you study at this great university, what do you think about these issues? I didn't have really quite an opinion, because I understood that all of these disciplines were still focused on other regions, not our region. But at the same time, kind of interestingly, I had the confidence that if I do study those topics, kind of from a clean slate, with an open mind, which is how you study topics in history, I had the confidence I can get to the right answers. And especially at that point, I was most passionate about question of inequality and how do we overcome inequality, because it was rising not only in our country, it was rising globally between countries. And at that point, I realized I want to study our region. So in my fourth year, I started applying to Eurasian studies programs. And so I got into several programs. I chose Georgetown University, which I haven't heard before. Professor Scarborough has recommended it to me. And that's where I got the scholarship. And I spent the first semester studying our region, but mostly I started focusing more into private sector driven solutions to a lot of the development challenges that not only post-Soviet countries face, but also developing countries in general. And that's where I started focusing more on international development efforts. Because my skills were mostly in research and analytical tools, I ended up joining first a due diligence company my first year, and then I transitioned to International Finance Corporation, which is a private sector arm at the World Bank Group. And I joined their operations unit, also doing more of a, so what is due diligence? I need to explain because I didn't know it before either. So this is when a company, before making an investment into a new project, a new partnership, they want to make sure that this new partner is clean. So meaning they don't have any, for example, mafia relations, they're not corrupt, it wouldn't be a reputational risk for them. And they just, exist, it's a legitimate entity. So all of those issues. But at CIFC, I started realizing that, well, it is a great organization with great people, but we really lack in terms of meeting the challenges of climate change and just meeting the challenges of this dilemma. So we have this growing global population, but at the same time, we have these shrinking resources. We have already done a great damage to the climate. So how do we balance that? And how do we, going forward, will be more sustainable? And that's when I realized well, I had these entrepreneurial passions as well. So I decided the best way going forward to pursue those passions would be to join a business school. And I ended up coming to Foster School of Business at University of Washington because it was my specific target, because this is a school that is ranked highly in terms of actually placing the students into where they want to be. So not just kind of randomly just getting a high paid job, but actually doing lots of soul searching and also doing lots of informational interviews so that they actually end up pursuing the things they wanted in the first place. And when joining the school, it's been just a month now of my studies. I felt, and I remember this summer when I was meeting with Professor Scarborough, I was saying one of the reasons I chose Foster, because it is also known for being very friendly, tight-knit community. I thought I would not fit in the least into this school because I'm a history major, so non-traditional kind of a background, and also non-traditional aspirations, so wanting to do sustainability. But once I joined the classes, I realized not only I fit in there, I should be there. They need me because we had this interesting discussion at one of the classes. There is right now a scandal going around Facebook about how they prioritize their profits over social good, over public good, how their algorithms end up promoting this viral content, which ends up feeding misinformation, hurting teens' self-image, so all of those things. And our professors, in American education, they don't want to impose their values on you, but they want you to come to your own conclusions, and hopefully you will come to good conclusions, right? Like what's best for society. And so it was our marketing professor. He wrote like 3 solutions. One, so for example, if you were in the board of directors for Facebook, what would you do? One, with this situation, one, you would keep on the same. Second, you will do some changes, but not like real structural changes. And 3, you will do like total structural change to really address these issues. And he broke us into groups, and even in my group, the first person who said, I would only do like just superficial changes, we don't really need to change our model. And I realized that even at Foster, students still kind of, when they place themselves in the shoes of an executive, they still think as an executive, meaning they worry about their jobs, their price of the shares. Whereas me, coming from just looking at things at a greater historical timeline, just thinking about all kinds of social forces that are shaping our history as humanity, right? Going forward, like average lifetime of a company is what, like 100 years, whereas decisions you make has all these implications, right, on which way society is going. And the January 6th kind of attack on Capitol, it's an attack on democracy, and United States is held up as a democracy for so many, developing countries, including ours, and it just has this ripple effect across the globe. So, and Facebook has played a, very big role in that, and they don't understand this, and not only because the Americans, but also because they come from like this business background, thinking only about numbers. And I realized that, so they need me to tell them why these issues has to be addressed, and how it can be, both, business good, because they're actually, like in the case of Facebook, their engagement numbers are falling, and they're just being very, blind to that, but also from the perspective of society. And there is right now a strong shift from emphasizing profits over into emphasizing all the stakeholders in a company. So for me, fundamentally, history has always been about making decisions, and I'm especially grateful I did it in undergrad, because as a liberal arts major, you will, like, especially at Nazarbayev University, you will all end up doing masters. And whichever kind of further, field you choose to study further, explore, I feel like history of all other disciplines builds the strongest tools, analytical tools, research tools, because you approach any question with humility, with clean slate, no biases, no subjectivity. You don't try to fit everything into a framework, into a school of thought. You don't make kind of crude assumptions that exclude all other outliers, right? You embrace all the complexity, and you try to understand deeply, in a nuanced way, these complicated questions, and solutions often lie in those problems itself, right? So understanding leads to a solution, and that's what I loved about history. And it helped me not only charting my own kind of professional goals and, achieving them, but also very personal too, because, being at NU, I know the challenge of having this kind of a, trying to bridge that gap, right, between like our own insulated culture. We don't really, discuss about these global issues affecting our country, our region. Kind of our parents play a very strong role in affecting our decisions. Peer pressure is very strong. But then you come to the school, and then you're encouraged to think critically about all these issues. And you just try to navigate the world with that is so rapidly changing and has so many demands on you as a young professional. And I felt like just history major helped me most in just building my own judgment in a confident but also kind of fact-based, evidence-driven way, and just build myself up both as an individual and a young professional. So, and now I look forward to hearing how Timur charted his course.
Thank you very much, Madina. Thank you. Timur.
So it's my turn. Thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone, again. So my name is Timur, and I'll try to be rather short. I think I don't have much to tell about myself. I think so. So my name is Timur. I'm originally from Almaty, and I got to university, I think it was 2015. I firstly and like lastly was the PSAR major, and I still stay that, but I did double major in history. How truly say I hated history before the university, because in our high schools you just are given the facts. They say you this is right, this is wrong, and this is how you should know, see the world through which prism you have. Truly say, I thought all the historians are the same, like in our high schools, and I didn't like that. And I came to Nazarbayev University as PSIR student. I've been like for 1.5 years, for 3 semesters without history courses, and it was fine for me. And then just because of the shortage in other courses, I took Professor Murphy's class as elective history, and I understood that actually the university history is quite different from what you expect from high school one. You're not given facts, you're not given like here's what's right here, your vision should be like that. No, here we have the primary sources, we have the documents, we have the just the facts, but we should work with them. We have all our own opinion. We should interpret them. We need to analyze it, and that's what I loved in the history actually. So, for instance, as an example, I once wrote a paper that Kenesario Kasimov's revolt was not a national revolt, and imagine just doing that in a Kazakhstani high school. You would be just killed by your teacher, truly say. Yeah, but I did that, and I ended up with having double major in PSIR and history, and I never regretted that. So I tried to focus on European history because it's what is my interest in region, just generally, because it's such a mixture and blend of culture, especially Eastern Europe, and of course, Kazakhstan, Southeast Asia, United States, Professor Bowen, hello again. So just many things. Firstly, I would say also, now I work in Nazarbayev Academy of Elbasy. It's under the foundation of Nursultan Nazarbayev. So I'm working in NGO, which is semi-state NGO. So we are kind of close with the government and government organizations. We're also very close with Nazarbayev University because we are connected to First Heartland Foundation with Nursultan Bank and all these organizations. I previously worked as an analyst in the field of educational management. So my approach was history, languages, and humanitarian classes like self-study. And so that's where I actually really applied my history knowledge. I applied my ideas about how history classes should be taught in high schools. And I actually really, all the time I was telling my supervisors that we need to have approach like in Nazarbayev University for our high schools, because it's really what makes you learn. Because when you're just given facts, you are just, okay, fine. You learn them by heart to pass the test, and then you forget about them and see only them in scary dreams and don't use them. Currently, I'm the head of analytics in Elbasy Academy, so I'm in charge of all the think tank approaches in Elbasy Academy. I shortly will tell you about our mission. Our mission is to reduce the inequality in education between rural schools and city schools, and also we serve as a think tank to government. We're just providing recommendations on various issues, including education, foreign policy, internal policy. So I'm in charge of analytics there. I would say history actually helped me more than PSIR. That's why I'm here, because double major, but still I'm talking about history here, because history actually teaches you how to analyze, how to have your own opinion. You don't just do something that by algorithm. You are trying to find your own path to the fact, and you're trying to interpret it. And nobody judges you if you have different opinion. And actually, I would say that currently the situation on the labor market in Kazakhstan is getting much better, because now supervisors, the leaders of the country, the leaders, because I work with the leadership of foundation, they value people who have different opinions than them, because you are trying to argue them, and if you are good enough with facts, if you're good enough with analytics, analyzing the facts, and you are able to convince them that it's actually right, also by historical facts, they can listen to you, and they value that you don't just blindly do what they say. You're just trying to find the best way to do that. So history major here is really what gave me that ability to be arguing with leadership, trying to give them my own vision. So it's with Kenesario's example. So And also we do methodology for history, as I said before. Now we are trying to collaborate with different high schools, NIS schools, and just ordinary schools in rural areas to try to test our assumptions about how history methodology, and how we also have the Kazakh language, because it's a big issue actually in Kazakhstan, because we don't have good methodology to teach Kazakh. And for the self-study, which is, samopoznание in Russian, because it's just written and it's a very good subject, but it doesn't have any methodologies to be useful, to say. So we're trying to implement also methodology on that ones. And also for the people, I would say, I truly consider myself as more like just the liberal arts student, the humanitarian social sciences, not just PSA of history. But I would say history is also useful for those who are interested in politics, because it gives you examples. Yeah, it's very obvious, and it's very probably, stereotypical to say that you learn from examples from the history, but it's actually true. You can prognose things, how they will evolve. For example, you can see the war in Afghanistan right now, the Taliban is taking over the government. But actually, if you see on the examples from history, you know that the same thing happens before, and you can actually forecast what will happen. Yeah, it's not always true, and it's all not always happen in real life, but still you have some chances to forecast what's happens. And I personally, my hobby is investment. I invest some of my spare money, and also history allows you to do that too, because you can forecast again based on the analysis of the past, how the stocks go up or down in the future. So it also helps. And lastly, I would say the history helps you just overall when you travel, because this summer I was in Montenegro, and it's actually the East Europe that I studied the most in university, and it's actually the blend of history. It's very different when you being a tourist just for entertainment, and when you're being a tourist with some knowledge of history, because you actually understand what the guide says and talks about, and you actually is involved. Because some of my peers who were in vacations, it was like another castle, okay, but it was interesting for me. So I will try to be short. I think I have my time, so I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Professor Scarborough.
Thanks very much to both of you. Really interesting and inspiring to listen to both of you. I really like the fact that you explain how history has helped you, your major helped you in the workforce, or to expand and to move from one field to another. Because I think a lot of students assume that if you major in history, you're going to be maybe a professor, and that's it, or a teacher, which is great. Obviously, that's a great thing to do, but it's not the only thing that you can do. All right. I think our guests would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Maybe if you can raise your hands, your little yellow cartoon hands there, I can call on you. Or if you have a question you'd like to put in the chat, that would be okay too. In fact, I think I saw a hand a minute ago. So I can begin. Oh, where is that? Yer Sultan?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you for your very interesting stories, and that you shared your experiences with your professional career. And thank you, Professor Scarborough, for organizing this event. And I just wanted to ask a question about the pursuits of graduate school and the research and scholarly works, like pursuits in academia, as you mentioned, Professor Scarborough. What are your experiences in pursuit of the graduate degrees and research?
So do you mean how did graduate school compare with undergraduate? Is that what you mean?
Sort of, but also, okay, did you have any second thoughts on pursuing academic career instead of your career as of now?
Okay, well, that's probably a question for Madina.
Yeah, I think it's for me. So I actually thought about it, but I'm that kind of person. I'm not really into academia, truly say. Yeah, I've graduated from Nazarbayev University, and actually I was cum laude with real great GPA, truly say. I'm not just trying to put myself forward, but just to say. But actually, I worked during my junior and senior years. I worked in the Senate of Parliament as a spare time. I was responsible for 25 hours per week of work. Actually, I firstly went there with CAC internship after the second year of my studies. But then I stayed there as a part-time advisor, part-time analyst. So I worked and I really liked the flow, how you are interacting with other people. You're just not learning, you're just trying to implement your knowledge right away. So I think I was trying to combine it with my studies, and I understood that for now, I'm more interested in working, and I'm actually trying to make an impact in politics of Kazakhstan. So, but actually to say, I think somehow at some point of my life, I will try to pursue master's degree, but no more. I'm sure I won't be a PhD anytime. I'm not ready to write like 150 pages of my dissertation. It will never happen. So, but maybe master's, but I'm not sure. It's just I think you understand it when you go, because some of my friends went to academia and left it after like one semester of master's degree going to work, and like this vice versa. Some of them went to working, and now like 1 year later they're trying to apply for master's degree. So you understand as you go, and I don't think it's a problem to make a mistake. You learn your mistakes, and it's really great. There's no such thing as negative experience. You always learn from it, and it's good for you.
I totally agree with Timur. It sounds like, Sultan, that you are considering master's degree, but you're not quite sure if it should be master's or PhD, and if either degrees and which field, right? And I totally understand that, because like, first of all, like, it's really hard to understand so where you're going, like further in your studies, what do you want to study? And second, it is really hard to understand so where you should study, and understand the funding questions, and being away from your family, so which country. And I also understand that at this age, you're trying to kind of chart your path forward, like for the next like several decades. And because you want to, plan it all out and then implement. But you will change rapidly actually in your 20s. And the best thing you can do right now is to understand so what you are most passionate right now, because as you make that next step, as Timur says, you will learn from it. And whether it is going to be the best experience ever or less than what you were expecting, it will still be a step forward, and you will learn from it, and you will understand from there which your next step should be. So yeah, it's all about growth.
Great, thank you. Other questions from Nazerke. Timur, being part of the quasi-state institution think tank, do you face any restrictions on research outputs, recommendations, methodologies that you produce?
So I'm always asked that. Like, it's probably like in the last 2 weeks, it was the third time, and during last year, I was asked numerously. So I'm not restricted at all, because I have my own vision. Of course, I understand there are some things that I shouldn't talk about. Of course, it's like this censorship. But truly say, we are not censored at all in what we produce, because it's for internal use firstly. Of course, my documents, I don't publish them. They're never published. I don't write articles for the journals, for magazines. It's some of my works are classified actually, but it's all for the leadership of the foundation of the quasi-state institution. So it's internal, and they don't censor, because actually they want to learn what you think about. Because if you are working there, you are treated as an expert, and if you're an expert, you're allowed to have your own opinion on everything happening in a state or even abroad, and you provide them a picture. It's of course different whether I agree with you or not, but you're not like censored what you write.
Great. We have a question from Professor Bechtel.
Hello, Medina, Timur, thank you both. I have a question about, at what point, either as you were a student or after, did you actually come to understand what the history major was giving you? You both mentioned this ability to judge your sources, to think critically, to make decisions. When did that occur to you for the first time? I mean, I find we all say it to our students that that's what is happening here as we're teaching these courses. But at what point did you come to recognize that in fact that's what you had? Those are the skills that you had learned. I'm curious to know.
Mhm.
Would you do it first?
Sure. So, actually, it was really hard for me to understand why I wanted to do history major. It was really hard to put my finger on it, actually. So when I was changing it, my main reason was that, so because I just really clearly remember that decision. I would like come after classes to my dormitory and I would continue researching on my own, like, watching documentaries, reading additional, then reaching out to professors about additional questions on the history topics from my, history classes. And I just loved it so much. And I still couldn't understand really why I enjoyed more than my other classes. But I just decided that if I'm so passionate and curious about this, I can only be the best expert in my field if I'm genuinely loving it, genuinely enjoying it, and willing to go the extra mile for it. And it was only the next year that I understood why, because once I started embracing the major as a whole, I saw most strikingly the difference between my other classes and history major. So one thing that always kind of bothered me a bit about, my economics classes, political science, international relations, is that we would study all these frameworks, right? Schools of thought, socialism, realism, liberalism, and in economics, you have all these, consumer behavior charts, and we would talk about. So I love this example. So, are individuals rational or not, right? And economists, they assume, okay, the consumer is rational, so, and take it from there. But just think about your own behavior. Are you rational most of the time, right? I mean, maybe if you're choosing between different kinds of pencils, you go for the cheaper one, all this, marginal utility, you're being rational there. But then you would go and splurge on a gift to someone you love, right? And that's totally maybe from the perspective of an economist is irrational. And there is now a whole field in economics that studies behavioral economics. And I just felt like in history, my mind could be more malleable. I could embrace all the outliers that are not fitting. For example, when you do quantitative research, you want to state your argument with 95% confidence. But say you're in a public policy discussion, right? And you have a 95% approval of a certain policy. But say 95% people sort of benefit from it, but it really hurts that other 5%. I mean, do you really want to go forward with that, right? So outliers are so important, right, in your decision making. So I just felt like I could come to history class with kind of totally clean slate of minds and just embrace all those different perspectives, let all those voices get heard, understand the context. And I also started realizing that I'm applying this thinking, this critical thinking to my personal life too, because again, it's really hard to bridge these two worlds between how kind of in your culture, your parents are always kind of trying to influence how you think, what decisions you're making, and then you start thinking, okay, so you start thinking about, okay, this parent, he or she grew up when the Soviet Union was falling apart. Also, he or she grew up in a society where family was the first thing, it's the thing that comes first. And that's why they're so invested in you making the right decisions, right? And that makes you more compassionate. You take away as a kind of pressure, you become more understanding of their context, and you also have the confidence to stay with your decisions, because there is this conundrum in being a young professional, in that older generation, whether it be your parents or your, even teachers, they grew up in a kind of a, different world. But our world is changing so fast. I mean, I joined Nazarbayev University 10 years ago. Social media wasn't yet that, strong yet, and I'm really glad I stayed out of it. But like, for example, with your generation, it is, might be so much bigger, and it's something that worries me. But it's just, the world is changing so fast. You have to be able to make your own judgments, even as a, just even if you're young. And I just, the more history classes I took, the difference became more stark to me. And I realized it was the best decision, because it just helps you to navigate the world with all those analytical tools.
Thank you, Madina. I think there's a follow-up question for Timur about your job. To what extent do you feel that your conclusions are actually accepted, implemented?
So of course, not 100%. Sometimes I have radical ideas. Sometimes I have a little bit different from what the leadership wants to. But some of them are actually implemented. I think one of the examples, as I was part of the think tank group in 2019 before the address of the president, and Professor Murphy can be the witness. I actually was writing capstone project on Lee Kuan Yew policy and Kazakhstan's and its impact on Kazakhstan. I was thinking that there's one good policy in Singapore, that you can withdraw some of the funds from the pension accounts. So that was one of the small ideas that our group had. We proposed it, and actually 1.5 years ago, I think it was actually implemented in the country. I'm not sure it was me. I'm not trying to claim the authority for that, but I had that idea, and Professor Murphy will testify that it's true, actually. Another example, that's we are launching a few projects across the regions. So we are allowed to propose our project ideas. So one of my ideas was to have a testing, not in the large schools in Nur Sultan, for instance. We chose the school in a village, which is, I think, 500 people population. And the school there was built in 1952, and only 12 children studied there, but there are many villages across that, and I proposed to organize the buses around all of the villages to bring children to this school, but after we rebuild it. So we are launching this project next year. So it was one of my ideas. Unfortunately, I cannot tell all the details, but still something.
Thank you. Can we get some more questions? We still have time.
Hey, Dan, I have a question.
Please.
I have a question both for Madina and Timur. So we have some of our current history majors in the audience tonight, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to give them a little bit of advice. And my question would be, if you could go back into the past with the knowledge that you have now, and tell yourself, maybe as a third or a fourth year student, things that you should be doing to try to prepare for life after NU. I'm curious to know, what advice would you give your former self, knowing what you do now and having the experiences you've accumulated since graduation? Do you have any words of wisdom to share about that for our current majors?
Or do you want to go tomorrow?
So, okay, fine, thank you. So I truly say I wouldn't change anything, mostly, because I'm satisfied with my decisions in the past. I don't think I have anything major to be changed. I would say, of course, Timur, there will be a pandemic in 2020, so have more parties than you have right now, but it's a little bit different. But to say in terms of academics, in terms of professional career, I wouldn't change everything. So I would do the same path as I had for now. So just follow what you think is right for you. So that's what I did. in my time. I never regretted that. So I think just follow, don't listen to everyone. Just if you feel it's right for you, just do that. And that's it.
Yeah, I also don't have a long answer because I really feel grateful for choosing history major. I mean, the way I see it, these questions that is kind of popular sometimes. So if you had a magic wand, what would be your one wish, right? And and then you say, I want to have the magic wand, right? So I can make lots of wishes. And that's how I view history, is because, I mean, you can study any subject if you have the tools that history major gives you, especially right now when we have so much data that is skewed, both qualitative and quantitative, and it just is driving like major decisions, and it is often misinterpreted not only by kind of average just people, but also by policymakers and sometimes even journalists. And just having been able to point that out, and I guess another thing I haven't mentioned yet is that another thing that the history classes train you so well at is actually building your arguments persuasively and clearly and concisely. And now that I'm in business school, I am especially grateful for that, because you know how you are especially graded on your participation and you don't want to drag the discussion. And I was actually approached just last week because there was kind of survey going on which classmate helped you most in understanding the material inside or outside of the class. And I think that prompted one of my classmates to approach me and say she's so grateful I am in the class, because whenever I do ask a question or I do make a comment, she listens to me, because she learns from it. And she said that was the consensus of her team too. And that's just, really great to hear. And I really credit it to my, history major background, just understanding the flow of the class, the arguments, contributing where it's the right thing, but also keeping it very brief, clear, and concise. And I guess so that's why I am with Timur. So yeah, really, you really need to listen to your heart, because you will end up doing what you want. If you don't follow your heart right now, you will follow it decades later. And it's going to be harder to pivot back then. So do it now, I mean, I understand all the challenges. I understand all the kind of different pressures you face, but you really have to you really have to believe in yourself, because you know what's best for you. And I guess one advice I would give to you is to read news. It's something I started on late, very late. I mean, even here, I kind of started catching up on it, but it was only over the last couple of years that I started reading it very systematically and just following all kinds of issues. Because right now you're asking, so what am I passionate about? And it's really hard to pinpoint what you're passionate about if you don't know what's going on, if you don't understand the forces that is shaping your environment and you too, your society, and you're part of that society, right? To understand your own context. I think actually one of the factors that attracts many, actually Kazakhstanis to history major, and they don't really follow up on it, unfortunately, is that our country has undergone so much change since independence, and we're still kind of very rapidly changing. There is all these intergenerational transformations that are, hard to grasp your mind around. And then we have all this question of statehood, right? So when our statehood began, and that influences your national identity. And we have this weird relationship, with Russia, China, with them being so much part of who we are, but also having these complicated, political realities, economic realities today. Globalization is a huge force too. And so just, to be able to understand how all of those things are influencing you and your society, reading news helps a lot. And then you will kind of end up naturally pursuing the very question you're most curious about. But one thing I would warn you, do choose good resources again, right? So that's where all of your history skills come in, because most news, they want to influence you, right? They want to influence your position, your votes, your consumption behaviors. And especially, for example, I really, maybe Timur could say, I really don't know good sources of media in Kazakhstan in Russian language. That's why I mostly stick to international journals. So, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, Economist, and that's where I get most of my information. But yeah, just start reading newspapers, credible newspapers, and making your own judgments on them. And if there's not something you don't understand quite, do talk to your professors. I always found my conversations helpful with professors. One thing that is great about Nazarbayev University, and I came to appreciate it after leaving it, and I couldn't really find it anywhere else, is that our professors are so generous with their time. They're always in their office, in their offices. You can just come in and drop by. Here it's much more challenging. Professors have just set times. If you didn't come in, too bad. Whereas our professors are so available, and especially in our school, actually, sorry for a long answer, but I think one huge advantage our history faculty has is that, think about any other major, economists, where best economists want to be, right? Where best engineers want to be. Maybe not in Kazakhstan, but for history professors, this is kind of a dream because they get their hands on the archives that were not available up to now. They can write original research. It attracts the best minds. It attracts best, anthropologists too. So just see this evolution of previously pretty insular society, how it's trying to overcome its Soviet legacy and adapt to globalization. So I think one of the reasons I kind of naturally shifted to history faculty is that I thought it was the best. I thought it was the strongest. And even though I actually really enjoyed, economics too, I liked how they put things in kind of a big picture. I felt like our faculty, of economists was not the strongest ones. At least they couldn't really explain, complicated issues as well, and they weren't as passionate about it, Whereas with history professors, they would organize additional trips. We in my year, we went to Karlak, for example, and we had all these additional events going on. We had history, events circle after hours. I mean, I loved that so much. So yeah, sorry. So my main answer is read news, read credible news, and follow your heart.
Thanks a lot, Madina. There's another question that's been waiting here. In your opinion, do you mean, Anar, what are the sort of opportunities available in Kazakhstan to history majors? Is that what the question means?
Hello, yes.
Yeah. I know that both of you are interested in contributing your time and your education to your own country. So maybe you can both answer that. What is there to be done in Kazakhstan for a history major?
So you said both, right? Both the opportunities for yourself as a graduate of history major and both of the history itself, right?
I think the question is if you're a history major,
okay.
Are there a wide range of opportunities in this country?
So I would say, firstly, of course, history teachers, history professors, it's obvious. But I would say in the field where I work in the analytics, the history majors are more than welcomed. So I have a team of few analysts well, we don't look at the major at all. So if you think, and I think in many of the big companies and large enterprises, not only state ones, people don't actually look at the major. They look at your skills and your analytical skills, critical thinking, especially if you're liberal arts or like humanities, social sciences student, graduate. So I would say there are plenty of opportunities outside of just history. It's analytics, it's journalism, of course, because journalism, you write some long essays on history courses in Nazarbayev University. I remember writing like capstone for 10,000 words. So you are learning how to write actually. So journalism is one of your options. You can be a writer, just write poems or novels. So it's also about what you choose. And of course, you can pursue a large master's degree in public administration, public policy, economics. So, or you can be a businessman actually, because as I said before, investment is also sometimes based on history. And if you have on your business and some of the financial aspects are also connected to history, you just need to use calculator properly. So I would say there are no limits to any major, and history especially. So I wouldn't say that in 2021 or the 21st century, your specialization, if you're liberal arts, is actually limits yourself sometimes in your career. So some limited.
Yeah.
Great. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And yes, I want to add to Timur's point how critical thinking is valued better at a workplace than any other kind of just, your specific credential, which major you had. At the end of the day, I mean, I believe it should be similar to labor market in Kazakhstan, but one thing I noticed so far in labor market in the United States, for example, is how less significant your actual kind of the specific credentials become over time. All your employer cares about is that you're competent, you're confident in your skills, and you can deliver, and that's why you in school and beyond, what you want to do is become the smartest person you can become, because people listen to the smartest person in the room. And if you are confident in your perspective and you can actually deliver on that perspective, people will start following you. And that's where kind of, just in terms of practical terms, that's where promotions and all these other progresses come in terms of, professional advancement. But also that's where I guess a lot of the fulfillment comes in, just, doing hard work and acquiring a certain stance on the question and then actually kind of being right on it, So yeah, in terms of perspective on the history major, focus on what skills you can gain from it, rather than on how you will be judged later on it. Also, I think the way Professor interpreted this question is how we want to contribute to growth development of Kazakhstan as a history major. And this is something, as I told earlier, is something I have always been looking at it from that perspective. So what are the best solutions to economic development? That's how I approached it. And I still believe that investing in the private sector is the best way going forward. So you must all be familiar by now between this strong correlation between liberal society, liberal political society, and kind of free market, right? And you can't, there is a long-held debate about which comes first, and the answer is it's a virtuous cycle, right? And if you can't do much right now in terms of advancing the freedom in a political sense in a society, what you can do is move the needle in the free market, right? And especially we have the very favorable conditions for that right now. Government is very much interested in making people happier socioeconomically, so their power won't be questioned as much. But actually, as middle class gets, wealthier, more educated, they will start questioning the political power too. We didn't vote for you. Why you should be telling us, how our political system should work. So that's how I look at it. I want to advance our private sector, especially, it's just very fulfilling too. I'm sure a lot of you come from, distant parts of Kazakhstan where, there is no magnificent architecture buildings and people just, they just struggle, right, with everyday hardships of life. They struggle to make a living, very low wages, high inflation, devaluation, all of these things. And creating jobs, well-paid jobs, jobs where they will be, educated and they can pass on those educational opportunities to their next generation. That's where I focus on. That's what I want to do coming back. And, I am still sticking with my original idea of bringing in more investment, especially Western investment, because they bring in with them rules, so that kind of seeds, strengthens, people's idea of rule of law, and also, environment. They keep themselves to higher environmental standards. So we really need to diversify our economy. I mean, I don't have to, dwell on that. And but right now I am especially interested in sustainable aspect of it all, because I don't want our economy creating just any old job, right? Creating more, gas engines or just, houses that are run on kind of usual, coal-powered electricity, but are actually advanced, right? Why can't we build more homes that are, solar-powered, wind-powered? So yeah, I want to work on, as a history major, I want to come back to economic development, but in a sustainable way.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any more questions? I don't see any more little yellow hands. I don't want to keep everyone too long. I might ask one more question if there are no other questions from the audience. I wonder if each of you could say just a little bit about the process that you went through of looking for the next opportunity after graduation, like around your senior year or maybe even your junior year. How did you go about looking for professional or graduate opportunities, and what kind of support networks did you use? I think that's something that our students would really benefit from hearing.
Mm-hmm. You want to go, Timur?
Oh, fine. So as I said before, I started my internship in the Senate as upper chamber of parliament after my second year of studies. And some of the professors, Professor Bowen, I think Professor Murphy, remember how I was suited up, sitting on the lecture in the mornings and go back to work. So it was CEC internship, and it turned from 1 month internship to 2 years of work actually in upper chamber of parliament. Just because I was arguing so much with my advisor or with my supervisor during my internship. He said, like, okay, we can get used to you for furthermore and pay you even if you are working. So after that, the pandemic started actually, and as I graduated from university, I didn't prolong my stay at the parliament because the shortage actually was such great because everything was closed and they didn't offer me anything, and they said it will be like later. I went to the private company. It's Temri Lab, so it's marketing company for the large corporations. True, say it was 2 months working there. I never liked it. And later on, I was headhunted by the HR of Elbas Academy. He approached me, he called me and said, I know you work in parliament, so do you want to work and come over to have some interviews with us? So I decided, why not? I went to the interview, and actually at the day of the interview, I stayed there until like 7 p.m. already working. So they hired me right after the interview, and I went back to the analytical job. I think it was September after the graduation, so a few months after.
Thank you.
In my case, so I went right into master's degree, and the way I chose like 4 different programs, Georgetown among them. So it is a research like any other. You want to do your online research and some soul searching, reflection, but also very importantly, talk to experts in that area that you trust most, their judgment. So in my case, I asked the faculty a lot about which programs are out there that would suit my so what I want to pursue most. And actually, so I asked a lot of people. 2 sources were most helpful. One is Professor Kara Schenk. I think she's still, in the faculty.
Still here.
Yeah, she actually sent me a report of different programs in Eurasian studies that were ranked and analyzed, and that was super helpful. And also Professor Scarborough, because you told me about Georgetown, I've never heard of it, and it had such a great program, especially being in DC and being, in the political capital, where there was, after all, all these tons of resources to learn from, and also, to be to intern as well. So yeah, so talk to faculty, but then, they give you leads, and then you go research them, you have more questions, you come back. So, it's an iterative process. And well, for my next, so currently for this business school, it was actually only my sole independent research. I mean, of course, after studying a lot about business issues, it was a private sector. I was most in love with, Harvard Business School, Massachusetts, so MIT, Stanford. And so I did apply to them because I had to, because I loved them so much. But actually, my main target, and which I thought was both realistic and a better fit, was University of Washington. And the way I found it is that, and this is where history major comes in again, I became I became really good at finding resources that answer my questions best. And I found out about this Foster School through a podcast that I found to be the best on professional advices. And it was a podcast run by Career Management Service of this school. And
That's good to know.
yeah, I just started following their kind of advice about, so like there were these books that I've read, Designing Your Life, and then just started learning more about the school. And I liked really their interviews with both students and faculty, and I could really see myself being there. And like every day here, I feel like it was a right decision. Because I enjoy the classes so greatly, and the professors, and I love the students here too. So that's another benefit. Again, I told you that you can apply these skills in your personal lives and in your kind of independent judgment about what works best for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Madina, Timur, you've been very generous with your time, and I think you've been very inspiring to everyone here. So thank you so much. And I think we better let you go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're very proud of both of you.
Thank you. Just in case anyone from our discussion wants to, we have some internships, we hire also the students. So if anyone is interested in analytics, just feel free to contact me. I can talk to you or even hire you. So just feel free.
That's very good to know as well. Yeah, we will keep you. Networking is another important skill when you're looking for a job. Okay, guys. Good morning.
Thank you
Today,
both.
good night.
Thank you for inviting.
Professor, thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.